Oh, this is practically the only reason I did this video tonight. Let me tell you about it. All right, we are going to do a quick Real Housewives of New York gossip dump, and I'm going to quickly recap the highlights of part 2 of the reunion. I'm very tired, but we gotta finish it. So here we go. Real Housewives of New York, season 13, reunion part 2, and other fun gossip like this. Ubah calling out Tamra Judge and Teddy Mellencamp on their podcast. Notice she covers it up. But what she does is she responds to all their criticism about her on the show. So the first thing she says is, at Tamra Judge, secure what apple? Darling, I'm the tree, duh. You know they edit this show to the moon and back. They leave nothing random. They choose to edit the way they do to create confusion so people like you can talk. If you've got questions, send them my way. Sorry if my home makeup session bothered you. FYI, I do what I want when I want. I guess Tamra was criticizing her getting makeup at home or something for the reunion. And then she also says, this is Ubah again to Tamra, side note, it's truly remarkable how some of you jump to conclusions thinking that my choice to keep my relationship private implies the man must be married. Not everyone thrives on seeking attention on airing their entire life for public consumption. And then she says, don't give me that BS about you signed up for this, my man didn't. Then she also does another comment. By the way, I didn't go to the reunion for anyone. I was there to seek clarity from a bunch of passive-aggressive hags. Oh, there's the hag word again. Jessel hags, Ubah hags. I mean, let's be clear. This is what a hag is. A witch, especially one in the form of an ugly old woman. It's a term of disparagement for a woman. I mean, they're kind of pushing this hag thing a little too far. Let's let the hag thing go. It's not even catchy. I don't even think people say hag in modern society. So then Tamra writes this to Ubah. Ubah, we love you. Just didn't understand your anger towards Jenna. And yes, the editing. Sorry, I take it all back. I take it all back. My entire podcast I take back. And Ubah says, I bear no grudge against Jenna. She shared her perspective in her confessional, despite not being present for the full story. I found it crucial to address this and seek clarity. Regarding cheese, I grew tired of discussing minor matters like cheese when more significant issues had arisen, and it appeared that everyone was avoiding them and being passive. I wanted Jenna to know that the team she aligned with on the show didn't even want her. Ubah may struggle on the show because she wants to be on the show and still be true to herself and the reality of what's really happening behind the cameras, and unfortunately that never works well. Then Tamra said, I wish they would have shown more of your perspective. I feel like you started to bring stuff up, but they glazed over it. Hey, Tamra, maybe wait for part 2 before you say all this crap on your podcast. And then she wrote, it got very confusing to the viewers. She's the viewers. Tamra's the viewer take. I mean, Tamra, at least have the balls to say it's your opinion. Ubah says then, you know very well why they did that to Tamra. And then Tamra said, love to have you on the podcast to hear more. Agree, no more cheese talk. And then Ubah said to her, inviting her on the pod, here we go. This is so good. No, thank you. The majority of people here resort to passive aggression and can't confront the truth. I won't waste my time on a group of biased viewers accustomed to artificial interactions. This is possibly my favorite part, the comments, of course. Ms. Cat's Life says, Tamra talking about someone trying to keep a spot on the show is rich because we know she'd crawl through glass to stay on that show. That truly is 5 laugh emojis, Ms. Katz. This one was good too. Lena Lantigua. I guess she's not coming back. Next we will hear from her on Bethany's podcast. Well, Bethany would like you to think so. This was a funny one too. Sherry B. Pab. Not Tamra backing up her mess to try to get Ubah on her podcast. Tamra is not on Ubah's level. Tamra's so desperate and cringe. Well, unfortunately, Ubah would not be able to come on Dishing Drama Dana until she left Bravo, because I am not sanctioned by Bravo PR, because I won't tell the narrative of Bravo. However, when Ubah's ready to tell her true story and she's done with her contract requirements, if she does choose to leave Real Housewives of New York, I would love to tell her story in my special way, which you guys know I'm really good at. Jenna was also featured in a UK magazine this week, and I thought I would share some pictures of her house with you that you may not have really gotten a good glimpse at in the show. I'll just quickly show you this, and then we'll get into it. Oh, there's Jenna in a really cool skirt sitting in her apartment. Much more flamboyant than we've seen her dress in the past. She looks great. Here's her living room. It looks really nice. I love her art's very Basquiat. Here's another angle of her living room. I'm leaving the bottom because it has the credits of everybody who, worked on these pictures, etc. Her library kind of work area. Here's her kitchen and cat. To me, this kitchen's a little bland. I'm looking for a little more. I do like the gold backdrop, though. That's kind of cool. Not sure I would have chosen the cat on the kitchen counter as the place that I would introduce the cat in this photo shoot, but I'm all about a random cat in the picture. There's a nice decorative picture of Jenna's bedroom. This is where all the magic happens. This is the tub that Jessel and Ubah loved. Some fans didn't like that there was a painting in the bathtub because they were like, doesn't it get ruined being close to water? But I mean, interior design really isn't that practical. That man in that picture could date Brynn. They have similar clothing. And this, of course, is the fabulous shoe closet, which was called out on the show. But I love how they decorated it and lit it. It's really nice. Not a fan of the chair, though. The chair, to me, dates the room. But I really love the shoes. Well, tonight on the reunion, we finally hear Brynn Whitfield's description of her job, in full. And I'll play you part of what she said. I missed some of it, unfortunately, because I was running for my phone to record it. And I missed part of it, but I'm sure you can use your imagination.
People use in order to market their products.
Have you worked at all with Ubah on Ubah Hot?
I've given her a million ideas. I've tried.
But I took some of your ideas.
Yeah.
She's very brilliant, and she couldn't do a business plan literally in 30 minutes.
Yeah. When I got hired to this job, I just left being the head of communications for a tech startup that got acquired. So, I don't need to prove anything to anyone.
Were you wondering what the company was that she worked for before? It's a company called Assembly, and she worked with them, I guess, for 2 years. Assembly, by the way, is PackView, and PackView is a branding platform that allows people to use a centralized admin interface to be able to manage their ad buys and their e-commerce and see where they may be missing things and do it all in one place. Yeah, sort of like a Norton administrator for networks, but for the advertising space in today's world using AI technology. And yes, I'm that old. And yes, I worked for Peter Norton Symantec. Can you believe that? That was a long time ago. See, full of surprises. Full of surprises. Anything can happen in this world. So I'm going to start in a weird place for the recap. And that is that Brynn Whitfield said that the reason that she didn't marry any of the 3 men that asked her to get married was because they broke up with her and then asked her, and she felt like that wasn't the way she wanted to be asked, right? They should have asked her and knew she was the right one when they were together, and that was a really valid point. Now, Andy seemed to be really obsessed with reflecting some of the fans' complaint, like, Gideon seems like your dream man. Why aren't you marrying him? And to this, Brynn Whitfield says, he's like a cousin to me. Like, it feels like a cousin relationship. So it somehow went from boyfriend to good friends, and then they can't really get out of the friend zone anymore. I think actually it also has to do with Gideon in general. She also says that he's related to Lady Stacia First of all, I warn my patrons all the time. All my Lord friends from the UK, and I have a few, they live on a allowance, and they're the cheapest guys I know. So I sort of feel like maybe this could be Gideon's problem, because he's a luxury agent at the agency, but he hasn't posted on any of his social media in like a year. I think the last time was in January in St. Bart's, which is high season when everybody goes to St. Bart's on the circuit. So I'm thinking to myself, this guy is sort of probably, I'm guessing, a part-time sort of real estate agent doing it sort of for fun, has some really powerful friends that give him houses to list and can make a quick commission. Doesn't really have to work because he gets like an allowance, but the allowance isn't enough to like really offer him like a mega lifestyle, but he can fake it because he does the circuit and, you know, occasionally gets like some money in, and family money maybe gets him a place. I don't know, something. It feels like that to me. You know what I mean? I just think Bren's looking for a mega power guy, and this guy isn't it. Now, she also said that his, she also says that his, you know what, is very polite, and if it was personified, using personification, it would be like this. Hello, Bren, would you like to take a ride? And that's a turnoff. At least Bryn recognizes that her dress makes her look like a pilgrim. She does say it. So she agreed with me when I said that on whatever, the last video or the finale video. I forget which one I said that in. But to be fair, my reunion dress and look had Tootsie vibes, so who am I to talk? So I'm just going to do a real high-level recap. The women start off the reunion talking about Pavit cheating. Jessel is still going on and on about how she feels really it was unfair for the women to come for her marriage and to question it when she was dealing with IVF. The women said, well, we didn't get that you were having such a hard time with IVF because you sort of made it sound almost like it was lighthearted and funny the way you guys weren't having sex and all of this, and you kept saying it. And we didn't really understand that it was like due to IVF being really tough on you. And then they showed clips where Jessel does say to the women that there are things that she's dealing with to do with IVF. But she does it in such a way that it's very light. And Bravo shows a few clips, one of which was her saying that, you know, they're under a lot of pressure during the IVF process, that they were forced to have sex on a schedule and it wasn't very romantic. They don't have a lot of time, the kids, all that stuff. So they do prove that Jessel did mention those things, but the women are like, yeah, I hear you, but it's still, you didn't say to us, like, these things are emotionally difficult on me. So we weren't really getting what you were saying. And then Sai and Aaron said, listen, we also thought it was really weird that he wanted to go to Vietnam for a sandwich and use his miles and go for 24 hours. It just all seemed very odd to us. Aaron was like, I don't understand it. Jenna Lyons was like, I totally understand it. I have friends that fly for miles all the time. And then Andy chimed in with Jessel saying that he's on like a committee for food in New York. So that makes sense to him now that it happened. Aaron is still like, I don't know, it's weird. Sai's like, I'm still not really feeling it or getting it, but if you say your marriage is fine, I'm going to butt out of it. I shouldn't have mentioned it or brought it up. My bad. I'm sorry for that. But you get the feeling that all the women think something's up with Pavit either way. But here's something insightful for you. Andy asks all the women at the end of the reunion to look inside themselves and imagine that the show is a mirror. He says it like a lot of the fans think the show is like looking in a mirror. Like no fans have ever said that, Andy. You said that. And he says, what did you see when you looked at yourself in the mirror of the show? And Jessel's answer was, I should treat my husband a lot nicer and then I can be kind of mean and I take him for granted sometimes. And, you know, maybe being together for as long as we have, we've lost some of that. But what I really think she meant to say was that they don't look at all romantically involved, which leads everybody, including the viewers, to think there may be a reason for them to have extramarital affairs, which is why this thing got legs. Probably with Sai and Aaron on the ground too. So she's going to fix that next season. And we're going to see a lot more romance between them. Kind of like this. But again, I always say it with Jessel. Her entire story on the show is pretty much made up. Now, another thing that comes up is Jessel's green lingerie and saying that she hated it and making Jenna feel bad for giving her this lingerie. Jenna, in all of this, says, thank you to my friends that stuck up for me. I really appreciate it. She's like, I've never had that kind of sister friendships where people did that for me, and it felt really good. And Andy seemed to be happy about that. Jessel was like, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize that I was being so rude. I just was so like absorbed with the fact that it looked terrible on me and I hated it, that I didn't take in consideration your feelings, and she apologized. Then the women start talking about how Jessel did not grow up, disadvantaged in any way, and how her stories trying to relate to people came off as though she was trying to almost be on par or compete with people with more tragic stories than her. And Aaron was just like, I don't understand why you kept saying like your situation was bad when you had your college paid for and you got an internship and you had a place to live and you had a savings account and all this stuff, and everyone around you is telling totally different stories, and it's just tone deaf to what they're telling you. And she was like, I was trying to relate to them, and they all kind of make up, okay, we accept that you were trying to connect with us. It just wasn't landing well because it made our stories seem like you weren't taking them seriously. Anyway, that's where that goes. And then we hear a really sad story. Sai tells the story in more depth of her struggles with her mom's addiction. And she admits in this telling of the story that she kicked her mom out of her brownstone 3 months before she died because her husband asked her to, because she was drinking in front of the children and she was so sloppy that, he was very uncomfortable with the children having her be that drunk around them and behaving in such a way. And Sai had dismissed it as eccentric and she was an artist and all this stuff, but the husband was really uncomfortable about it. And so she forced the mother to leave. And then the mother went on a spiral downhill, and then she dies. And she can't believe and starts to cry a lot at this point that she kicked her mom out of her house while she's living in this fancy brownstone. And she's like, I feel so guilty and so bad because how dare I do that? And then my mom dies. Did I cause it? I wonder about it. But before this sort of ending of the story, she tells us all the many things she did for her mother, which never seemed to help her mother get out of the disease of addiction to alcohol. And she would constantly have to, pick her mother up, and then her mother would get drunk, and, it just never got anywhere. It was like a cycle, and she was exhausted. And so you understand where Sai's coming from, and you feel bad for her. And it's a very, very difficult scene to watch. It's actually one of the best scenes I think I've seen on a reunion, really heartfelt. And Sai really genuinely was telling the story, was in the zone. Sometimes when the cameras are all on you and you're asked a question and you start to feel it, the cameras, the intensity of the energy on the stage, it really makes you kind of tap into stuff, and then you kind of can't stop. And I could tell she was having one of those situations. When the women are really in control and they're contrived, they've tuned out of all of that. They're not really tapping something inside themselves. They're just running a script they practiced at home and they're saying it. When you see the women get really, really angry or get really messy or hysterically cry or tell a really deep story better than they ever have before. And it's like you can tell they're emotional about it and they're sort of checked out and they're more about the story. You know a real moment's happening. So we also finally understand Sai's obsession with food. She explains that she works out with weights every day and she eats really lean. She's constantly hungry because every 2 hours her body burns through food because of her metabolism, and she legit gets hangry. And sometimes filming happened during awful times when it was really time for her to eat and she couldn't get food and her body was just mad. She was like starving. And so that's what happened. And she just was vocalizing it on the show. And she'd also be really bitchy because she was hungry. And I get that because you are starved on the show. So Erin is called out as a gaslighter. You can tell the women don't trust Erin. They feel like Erin on purpose stirred the pot. Erin is just saying a lot of apologies and doing a lot of denials and trying to change narrative. But the women are doing a very good job at not letting her, which is unusual. Ubah really comes in hot. Then Ubah says that Erin and Brynn are faking their friendship for the show, that especially at the reunion, all their apologies and stuff is all BS, that they don't have a real relationship and they always come for each other. Then she said that Jessel, Erin, and Sai did not want Jenna Lyons on the show because they felt that she didn't fit the mold or fit the group. And Sai admitted, I did say that I didn't think you'd fit in, but you proved us wrong. And that's what all the women said. You proved us wrong. You do fit in, even though you're different and weird and corporate and all this stuff, you actually are like super interesting and you worked really well with us in the group because you're so unique. So that's sort of where we go with that. But I could tell that made Jenna feel really sad because that's sort of the MO of her life. And she goes on to say, like, she hates that people judge without getting to know people. Welcome to Housewives. So Ubah says, listen, I was really upset about the cell phone. First of all, you kept it for longer than 45 minutes. It was like 4 hours. She said, second of all, I stayed in my room and I really felt as though I wasn't going to fight with you. But then when I came downstairs after staying in my room all morning to give you space and me space to calm down, you said, get your name out of my mouth or something like that when Erin says that to Ubah. And she said that was it. It set me off into the next stratosphere of anger because how dare you after you did all this to me. And then she said that Erin lied and she never sent a text message to Jessel. Never. That there was like a devil emoji. That was all she did about when the cell phone was going out. So Erin very much misrepresented what happened that day, which leads me to believe the producers were behind it. And then what Erin didn't expect was the gang up in the hot tub of all the women. And when that happened, Erin was kind of like, is this even worth it? Like when the producers tell you to do it and then you have that result, like, you know, is it worth it? So we end the show with everybody apologizing and doing what Andy wants. We get a feeling that all the women are going to be asked back for season 2. However, a lot of changes are happening in people's lives. We've got Jenna Lyons with a significant other who's very private and doesn't really want her to be on the show anymore. And she may just take the momentum that she got from the show and leave on a high note because we all know that there's only so many seasons you leave on a high note. And then we also have Ubah, who's dating a financial investment banker guy, probably out of Greenwich or that area. And he's very private and doesn't want to be on the show. And he may ask her if they're enjoying each other's company and it's getting more serious to consider not being on the show anymore. And she'll have to give that some thought or not. And then the other women, I think, will come back no matter what. You know, it works with their life pretty much. Unless, of course, Pavita's really cheating on Jessel. And if he is, well, then maybe they won't come back.